Here we are with our revamped and revitalized look into how to play each of the nations. This video is going to cover the Metal Nation, the single most winningest element in this game's history. This has the most unique winners on this element because it has a pretty easy way of playing with multiple viable strategies. That being said, its late game strategy is typically the one that is prioritized, and it's very hard to actually disrupt. They've got mid-game defensive units that are able to deflect attacks, while also being able to have a great economy on the backside to go into Tier 3 and access their quests and other late-game abilities. Either way, a very defensive nation that is very hard to stop on it accomplishing its objective. Let's take a look at their other abilities and how they tackle the board. Here we have the Metal Nation's abilities, and the Metal Nation currently has the most abilities up for grabs here. And the reason why they're in kind of a tricky position is because they got a whole new line of abilities when they were already winning at a pretty high rate. They're the winningest element in the game. And I don't mean that they win the most, I mean that the most players have won on them because they have a pretty straightforward strategy, or at least their original build had a pretty straightforward strategy. And so I've separated them into a couple groups here. Here is the standard build that we see on Metal now. And one of the most recent nerfs they just received is that they used to be able to purchase mountains for half price. That is now gone for them. And so they were looking for mountain-heavy corners where they could acquire a lot of land pretty quickly. But it all revolved around them converting their own tiles into ore tiles that would eventually become smelter tiles. Their quest in Tier 3 is to own 4 of these ore tiles that, when they hit Tier 3, automatically become these smelter tiles. And so they're a very building material-heavy nation. And with these building materials, they get more powerful defensive fortifications so that they can fortify that land, make it very difficult to take. And then in Tier 2, they get 3 free expensive defensive fortifications, but they're not sticking around for too long because they can convert those defensive fortifications into metal monoliths, armies that can then be used to aggress upon bosses or anyone that is trying to come in from the outside. And so typically what we're seeing these metal players do is if you see 2 mountains in reach of a corner, it's a pretty safe bet that metal is on the table to be taken. And this is it used to be a situational card that people realize is just really, really, really good because you have a strategy where you can almost keep to yourself, and anyone who attacks you is just really trying to interrupt. They're not even trying to kill you. They're just trying to interrupt you from achieving your quest in a very efficient manner. And so that's why they're attacking you, not really to kill you. And I also love that their honed armor or their sharpened steel abilities allow them to sort of scale into the game. It's really, really fun for them. And then they've got other fun abilities like Descendants of Hephaestus, which is going to interact with one of my favorite landmark tiles in the game, Hephaestus' Smith. But now we take a look at their second build down here, which is Chain Metal. Which, revolves all around the theme of creating your tiles into links in your chain. So tiles that are connected are links in a chain. And so this all revolves around their Chain Gang, their primary passive ability that you must take with Tier 1, which is the ability to turn tiles into links in the chain. And this is going to allow the first 2 tiles at your general purchases for half price. So they are a more aggressive build. However, you sacrifice a little bit of your economy because you're not typically prioritizing these ores and these smelters like you do in this original build, and so you need that little bit of a bolster to stay relevant. On top of that, we have a pretty similar card to the Fire Priority Strike. We have Link Up, which is going to allow you to put a free resource building and a soldier on it, but you can only use that if you're a lower tier turn. So starting 10-10 or 13-13. So combine Chain Gang with Link Up, and you get a lot of discounted numbers. Your general is purchasing 2 tiles for half price, and then you're getting a free resource building and a soldier on that first tile that you purchase. It's a really, really solid start. And then from there, we've got all these abilities that revolve around you connecting your tiles and going fairly aggressive and restraining your opponent. And so Miranda Rights is going to hold down 5 soldiers, and in the beginning of the turn, or at the beginning of the game, this is a really, really big deal. You could take a very early advantage on your opponent. But then we get to Tier 2, where we take 10 soldiers prisoner, and if they aren't reclaimed in the next turn, they become yours. And there's not too many elements that can really confidently reclaim this, and so it really disrupts the rhythm there. And then you've got later game cards like Chain Link Defense and Warden, which is going to allow all of your tiles to become links because you're progressing towards a chain reaction where you get 10 of these linked tiles. The downside to taking this is you are putting a little bit more invested into your early tiles. It does cost an additional 1-1 to turn tiles into links, But the early game aggression potential is pretty solid, but I do think it's fairly specific matchups for chain metal to be better than just the original metal. If I see 2 or 3 mountains in a corner and metal doesn't get banned, then I'm definitely going for this build. It's just safer. It's very hard to disrupt. And so it's very situational, and of course we're taking looks at it, but I think chain metal will be more relevant here pretty soon. Their other fun abilities, we've got their Monument County Lockup, which is a prison for everyone on the board. Soldiers that die anywhere on the board go to your star tile, and they can bail them out for a discounted rate, but it goes to you. So you're getting paid for them to get their soldiers back. That can be a big deal, because if they leave them in there, well, in Tier 3, you can convert all of your soldiers in the prison to your side. That's potentially massive. We'll see what you guys do with the Metal Nation